A new report from Punchbowl News says that Amazon is looking to avoid the blame for raising prices as a result of President Trump's new tariff.
But I imagine you do when it comes to tariffs.
We look at all the things that could impact consumers and customers.
Imagine a world where your Amazon Prime delivery is suddenly 30%, 50%, even 100% more expensive, where thousands of small businesses on Amazon are forced to shut down. This isn't a dystopian fantasy. This could be the reality under a new wave of Trump tariffs. Amazon, the e-commerce giant that changed the way we shop, is standing in the crosshairs of a trade war that could cripple its business. Are we watching the beginning of the end for Amazon as we know it? And more importantly, what does it mean for you? Welcome back to Janice Talks. To understand the massive threat looming over Amazon, we need to look at the weapons being deployed, a multi-layered barrage of tariffs. Think of tariffs as taxes on goods imported from other countries. The more tariffs, the higher the cost. We're talking about the IEEPA emergency tariff, existing Section 301 and Section 232 duties, and the devastating elimination of the de minimis rule for Chinese goods. Now, let's break these down simply. First, there's the IEEPA emergency tariff. As of May 2025, this is a hefty 30% tariff on all Chinese imports, comprising a 10% baseline and an additional 20% related to other concerns. And get this, it's initially set for just 90 days, adding massive uncertainty. Then you have the Section 301 tariffs. These have been around for a bit and target specific lists of Chinese goods, with rates ranging from 7.5% to a staggering 25% or even higher on some products. These don't go away. They stack on top of the IEEPA tariff. There are also Section 232 tariffs on specific commodities like steel and aluminum, which can also apply and add to the cost. But one of the biggest blows, especially for online shoppers and small sellers, is the elimination of the de minimis rule for goods from China and Hong Kong. Previously, items valued under $800 could enter the US duty-free. That's gone for China as of May 2nd, 2025. Now, every shipment, no matter how small, faces formal customs and duties. And it gets worse. New, incredibly punitive postal tariffs were introduced for these low-value shipments from China. We're talking 120% of the item's value, or a flat fee of $100 per item. And that fee is set to rise to $200. Imagine a $10 gadget you love. It could suddenly face a $100 shipping fee. That's an effective tariff rate of 1,000%. It's not just one tariff. It's death by 1,000 cuts. When you pile all these on top of each other, the total burden on goods from China can be astronomical. Some estimates suggest the total tariff cost on a $1,000 shipment could hit 172% or even higher, even before you factor in shipping. Even with the supposed trade deal in May 2025 that slightly reduced some peak rates, the effective average duty on many Chinese goods is still expected to be in the 40% to 55% range. And the worst part? The rules like that 90-day IEEPA rate keep changing, creating a volatile environment that's poison for businesses like Amazon that rely on predictability for managing inventory and pricing. This constant flux is profoundly disruptive. So, how does this tariff storm directly hit Amazon? Right in its e-commerce heart. Amazon's entire business model is built on getting you tons of products, cheap and fast. These tariffs attacks that model from every angle. Let's first talk about Amazon's own sales, what they call their 1P or first-party business. This is where Amazon buys products and sells them directly to you. Roughly 25% of the inventory costs for these products come from China. Amazon typically operates on gross profit margins of around 26% for these items. If their cost to acquire these goods jumps by 15 to 20% due to tariffs, as some analysts suggest, those profit margins get absolutely crushed. Suddenly, it's much less profitable for Amazon to sell its own branded goods or products it sources directly. But the real devastation, the true catastrophe, is for the millions of third-party sellers on Amazon, the third-party marketplace. These are often small and medium-sized businesses, maybe even someone you know, who uses Amazon to reach customers. A staggering 71% of the products these third-party sellers offer originate from China. Many of these businesses operate on razor-thin profit margins, sometimes as low as 10 to 15%. Imagine a small toy that costs $3 to make and import. With these new tariffs, its landed cost could surge to $7 or more. That difference could wipe out their entire profit, and then some. Many simply can't survive that kind of hit. We've seen reports that over 70% of all products sold on Amazon come from China or Taiwan. So this is a widespread crisis for sellers. And remember that de minimis disaster we talked about? The elimination of that $800 duty-free allowance for Chinese imports is a hammer blow, especially for sellers of low-cost items. Suddenly, every cheap gadget, every small accessory, every little thing that used to come in without extra fees now faces formal customs, duties, and those insane postal tariffs. This could wipe out a huge segment of affordable goods on Amazon. For smaller sellers who built their business on these low-cost items, this change alone can be a death sentence, making their business model completely unviable. We're hearing that many Chinese sellers, who make up over half of Amazon's top sellers, are already planning price hikes of 20 to 50%, or are even considering leaving the US market entirely. So, Amazon's costs go up. Sellers' costs go up. Guess who ultimately pays for these tariffs? You do. Amazon and its sellers will be forced to pass these massive costs onto customers. There's just no other way for many to stay afloat. Get ready for some serious sticker shock. Projections show the prices of everyday tech could skyrocket. We're talking smartphones up by an estimated 31%, laptops and tablets by 34%, and video game consoles by a mind-blowing 69%. That means your next PlayStation 5, which might be around $499 now, could jump to over $1,200 if the full tariff costs are passed on. Think about that. This isn't just about your favorite gadgets costing more. The cumulative effect of these tariffs could cost the average American household an extra $4,600 to $4,700 a year. When everything gets more expensive, people have less money to spend. This will inevitably lead to what economists call demand destruction. People simply stop buying non-essential items or even some essentials if prices are too high. Fewer sales for Amazon, fewer sales for its sellers, and a slower economy for everyone. Retailers like Walmart have already warned about price increases on everyday items due to tariffs. And it's not just about price, it's about choice. As sellers go bust or are forced to flee the US market because they can't afford these tariffs, the variety of products on Amazon will shrink. That everything store advantage that Amazon works so hard to build, it could vanish. Kiss goodbye to many unique and innovative products often brought to market by smaller independent sellers. Amazon knows you'll be angry about these prices. There was even an NPR story a while back though Amazon denied it, that they were considering showing tariff costs directly to consumers at checkout. Why? Because they wanted you to see who was really making things more expensive. The financial markets, Wall Street, they're already sounding the alarm. They see the writing on the wall. Amazon's own forecasts have been gloomy, with executives warning that tariffs and trade policies could cause consumers to pull back on spending. Analysts who follow the company are busy slashing their growth estimates. Let's look at some key financial hits, and folks, for amateur investors, these numbers tell a scary story. Amazon's operating profit guidance for the second quarter of 2025, that's how much profit they expect to make from their operations, was between $13 billion and $17.5 billion. That sounds like a lot, but it was weaker than the average analyst estimate of $17.8 billion, and the company pointed to tariffs as a reason for caution. More telling is the North American retail operating margin. Think of margin as the percentage of profit Amazon makes on each sale in its core market. The consensus forecast for this margin in fiscal year 2025 dropped from 7.2% down to 6.6%. That might not sound like a huge drop, but for a company the size of Amazon, it means billions in lost profitability, a direct hit from these tariff-related costs. And what about Amazon's stock price? It took a significant beating in 2025. As of mid-May 2025, the stock was down 14% from its all-time high. Earlier in the year, by mid-April, it had registered a year-to-date loss of nearly 20%. The stock fell from a high of over $242 in early February 2025 to around $172 by mid-April 2025. Analysts directly blamed these tariff fears and the anticipated hit to costs and profits for the drop. Some even slashed their price targets for Amazon stock. Because of all this uncertainty, this isn't just a blip, a bad quarter. It's a sign of sustained damage to Amazon's growth engine and its profitability. Investors are clearly losing confidence, and when Wall Street panics about a company like Amazon, it's a big deal. Now, Amazon isn't going down without a fight. This is a massive, resourceful company. They're scrambling to diversify their supply chains for their private label products, trying to shift sourcing away from China to countries like Vietnam, India, and Mexico. They're also buying up inventory in advance, trying to get goods in before tariff hikes hit harder or to plug potential supply gaps. They're even using sophisticated logistics tricks, like bonded warehouses and foreign trade zones, to manage import duties more effectively. CEO Andy Jassy has tried to sound optimistic, suggesting Amazon could even emerge from this period of uncertainty in a stronger relative position. But let's be real, shifting massive supply chains, the kind Amazon relies on, takes years and costs an absolute fortune. Finding new suppliers who can match China's scale, efficiency, and cost effectiveness is a monumental task. They might find new sources, but will they be as cheap or efficient? Unlikely, at least not quickly. Buying inventory in advance ties up huge amounts of capital, increases storage costs, and what if demand changes or tariff policies shift again? They could be stuck with useless stock. These are costly damage control measures, not a magic bullet. They might lessen the blow, but they won't neutralize the tariff onslaught. The damage to the bottom line, to their profitability, is still happening. So, while Amazon is fighting, the question is, can these efforts ever be enough to truly offset such a broad and damaging assault? You might be thinking, okay, e-commerce is hit hard, but what about Amazon's cash cows? Amazon Web Services, AWS, their cloud computing division, and their booming advertising business? Surely they're safe. Well, think again. While AWS isn't directly hit by tariffs on Chinese consumer goods, its underlying infrastructure, the servers, the networking gear, has components that are sourced globally, including from China. In fact, Amazon's CEO Andy Jassy mentioned that the company has been actively working to diversify its supply chains for AWS hardware and device components away from China for the past 6 years, calling it a wise move. This proactive diversification itself tells you they see the risk, but it also means Amazon has already been spending money and making strategic shifts to lessen these geopolitical trade risks and indirect costs even for AWS. More importantly, if these tariffs lead to a broader global trade war and a significant economic slowdown, businesses everywhere will cut back on IT spending and investments. That slowdown in business investment could definitely hit AWS's growth. We even saw AWS's Q1 revenue come in slightly below some analyst expectations, causing a bit of concern. And what about Amazon's advertising revenue? It's been growing like crazy, up 19% recently. This is where sellers pay to promote their products on Amazon. But here's the catch. A huge portion of that ad revenue, estimated to be over 80% by some analyses, comes from those very same third-party sellers who are getting crushed by tariffs. If tariffs force a significant number of these sellers to slash their spending, and advertising is often one of the first things to get cut in a budget crunch, or worse, if they go out of business or leave the Amazon platform altogether, then Amazon's ad income takes a direct hit. So the pain in e-commerce bleeds everywhere, even into these supposedly safer, high-margin businesses. Now, some people, maybe even Amazon itself, might try to find silver linings in this tariff storm. The May 2025 trade deal did briefly pause the absolute most insane tariff rates that were threatened. Yay! A temporary pause from the brink still leaves us in a very dangerous place. And yes, it's true that the elimination of that de minimis rule we talked about, the one allowing cheap items in duty-free, could actually hurt some of Amazon's direct competitors more than Amazon, at least initially. We're talking about those ultra-fast fashion platforms like Shein and Temu. They relied heavily on shipping low-cost items directly to U.S. consumers from China without duties. With that loophole now closed for Chinese imports, these competitors face massive increases to their costs. So theoretically, Amazon might gain a tiny bit of market share from them if they struggle more. But let's be absolutely clear. This is like fighting over a bigger slice of a rapidly shrinking poisoned pie. If the entire e-commerce market is damaged by these tariffs, if consumers stop spending because everything is too expensive, then any relative gain for Amazon is pretty meaningless. These tiny crumbs don't even begin to offset the mountain of negative impacts these tariffs are having across Amazon's core business. This isn't just about numbers on a spreadsheet or a few percentage points on a profit margin. This is about the potential unraveling of the entire Amazon ecosystem as we know it. Let's recap the core negative impacts we've discussed. Skyrocketing costs for Amazon itself and for its millions of third-party sellers, massive price hikes for you, the everyday consumer, on almost everything you buy on the platform. Small businesses, the backbone of the Amazon marketplace, the innovators driven to the wall, many facing extinction, reduced choice for consumers, less innovation as sellers disappear, severe damage to Amazon's profitability, and cratering investor confidence, as we saw with the stock price, and even its safer divisions like AWS Cloud Services and the lucrative advertising business are at risk from the fallout. This is a strategic nightmare for Amazon. Their entire globally dominant model is built on 3 pillars: vast selection, competitive pricing, and incredible convenience. These tariffs systematically attack every single one of these pillars. Higher costs mean higher prices, challenging competitive pricing. Seller exodus means less vast selection. Supply chain chaos impacts convenience. It could force a permanent, incredibly costly re-engineering of their entire business, potentially making Amazon less efficient and more expensive for good. So, the big question we have to ask is this coherent economic strategy, or is it economic sabotage? Who really benefits when American consumers and American businesses, big and small, are the ones left to suffer the consequences? The future for Amazon, under the shadow of these tariffs, looks bleak. We're not talking about a minor speed bump. We're talking about a potentially high-cost, deeply uncertain, and significantly diminished future for one of the world's largest and most influential companies. While Amazon is undoubtedly resilient, innovative, and has immense resources, this perfect storm of factors, devastating multi-layered tariffs, the game-changing de minimis rule elimination for China, and the broader global economic uncertainty these policies fuel, poses an unprecedented threat to its core e-commerce business. The question isn't if Amazon will be hurt by these tariffs. The evidence is clear that the damage is already being done. The real questions are, how badly will Amazon be hurt? And for how long will this pain last? And perhaps most importantly, what will the final bill be for the millions of Americans who rely on Amazon every day? Its sellers, its employees, and you, the consumer. What do you think? Are these tariffs a necessary evil to achieve some larger goal? Or are they a reckless gamble that will destroy American businesses and hit your wallet hard? Is Amazon truly too big to fail? Or is this a storm it just can't weather? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. This is a hugely controversial topic, and I genuinely want to hear every perspective. Don't forget to like this video if you found it informative and it made you think. Please subscribe to Janice Talks for more deep dives into the financial topics that affect you. And of course, share this video with anyone who shops on Amazon or is concerned about the direction of our economy. This is Janice, and you've been watching Janice Talks. Stay informed, stay curious, and keep learning.